Okay, here we go. We are recording in progress. Hello, Ackland. Wow, look at that fancy pants camera work. What program are you? This is the Owl setup at Ackland. Yeah, it is. Look at that. That is a nice little idea. Okay, so here it is. My name is Josh. I am with Video Game Clubs of America. Mike is also with Video Game Clubs of America. He's going to be leading this charge today. Sitting over there in the sick booth at VGC USA is Micah around the corner. He's not feeling well. He's going to be manning the old chat boxes. So if you want to chat away, Micah will be there answering questions via the typing. Or if you want to unmute, the faster answer is always unmute and then ask Mike directly. He is a IT professional out of the Chambers Area School District. He's the guy who fixes things for a living. He gets asked questions all the time, and it's usually the same question 72 times. So his patience is high. Does that make sense? So don't think ask your question. All right. One more time, I'm going to put it in the box here in the chat box. This is a PDF document of the steps we're going to be basically doing today. So there's some slight modifications that we found as we went. But this is generally what we're doing. If you need a guide, you will take a look at it, and that guide itself will then look like what's on the screen, what I'm sharing right now. And the first step is to unbox your case. So without further ado, I'm going to give the headphones to Mike, and we're off and running. Everybody cool? Thumbs up, Chester County IU. You ready to do this? All right, there's some thumbs up. Here we go. Let me get you up to there.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Let's get to it's Mike.
Yeah,
You want
so
to talk to them first?
yeah, so my name is Mike Pittenger. I've been fixing computers for way longer than probably most sane people would be doing it. So it's fun job, fun hobby, and hopefully we can teach some people some things today about how computers work and how to fix them if they have trouble. Yeah, good STEAM education. So we'll have a good time. We'll have a cool computer when we're done.
So I'm going to switch cameras now. You ready?
Yep. Yeah, go ahead and put it on the top down. So I think we'll stop. Mike, if you can pin the top down for us. Saber pins. All right, so if everybody wants to just go ahead and get your case unboxed first. We've got try and keep our top down view. So when you're following along, we've got our bottom here, front, top, and back.
Question already? They can't see. This is just for you.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's just for my reference.
Yeah.
So these screws on the back are usually hand tightened, but when they come first thing from the factory, they're tighter.
I'm back with the PC.
All right. We'll be here. So we're gonna go ahead and take off the front and back panels.
Mike, frame of reference, motherboard is right here.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. You good? You good? Coffee with my coffee. What kind of coffee? Text me what you want to talk about. Where do you get it from? Omega Coffee, Tree Big, the ultimate store. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Mike, you want coffee?
If he is matcha, can you get me one, please?
Matcha.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
It's coming down already.
All right, so I'm gonna set our panels aside. This back panel, that's solid. This one is very sturdy, so you don't have to be as careful with it. The front panel, so you can see all the cool glowy stuff, is tempered glass, so please be careful with this one. So we're gonna look on the back side of the case first. In the hard drive bay area, at near the bottom of the case, there's screws that we need to install the motherboard, as well as the quick start guide, if you'd like that for reference. Got a little baggie here. So we've got some zip ties. One thing we'll need is the splitter cable is for the 3 fans on the front of the computer. So we're just going to set this aside for now, but we'll come back to that later once we're plugging everything in. And the other thing we'll need from this bag is a baggie of tiny screws. These will be our standoff screws to hold the motherboard to the case. So as for the rest of the bag, there's some extra screws to hold some things in. If you would lose it, like some fans screws or like some screws for the back of the case. So I would hang on to this baggie, but everything else that's in it for the time being, we don't need today. All right, so I'm going to flip back over to the front and just point out a few things inside. So at the bottom of the case, we've got some wires here. These will be the controls for the front panel. These get plugged into the motherboard, and we're going to save these for last just because they kind of get in the way of everything else. So those are down there where the power supply will be installed. If you look closely on the inside, you'll see there's a label here. It says ATX or micro ATX or mini ITX. Those are different size motherboards that will fit in this case. The one we have here is a mini ATX case. So you can see there should be some M's next to little standoffs on the inside. So these will be the 6 spots that we need to put screws in once the board is in. All right, so we'll move on. First box we want to open is our MAG B660M mortar. This is our motherboard. So when it comes to handling components, the best practice is to have a anti-static mat or anti-static wristbands. But what we can do is just touch a metal piece of the case to ground ourselves in case there's any static electricity. So before you get any component out of its static bag, just go ahead and touch a metal part on the case. And then we'll have some parts in the motherboard box as well. So we have on top are some Wi-Fi antennas. We've got some hard drive cables. These are for still good drives or SATA cables, but we're not going to have any for our build today, so these can be set aside. And some extra screws. And if you do need screwdrivers, there is a set that came with the motherboard from MSI. So these are handy to have just in case. And then we've got our motherboard itself. So when you go to take it out of the bag, try to gently grab it by the sides if you can. Anywhere on the side is safe to touch, or the metal pieces on here, the heat sinks, you can grab it by. But the parts you want to try to avoid touching are any of the circuitry on top or any of the pins, just to make sure, you don't get any oil or anything corrosive on those. And then generally, when we're working with the components, I like to put them back on the anti-static bag just for safety. And then you can also put it on cardboard as well. So the first deviation from our slideshow that we're going to do is I want to install the hard drive while nothing's in and it's easy to reach. So I'll try to get this up for the camera. So this will be the hard drive slot we're using. This is for an M.2 style hard drive. So the box with the hard drive will be this Spatium M450. So we'll go ahead and get those out. I'll give everybody a second just to make sure we've got the all the pieces we need right now. And this is what our hard drive looks like. Just a small chip to install. So when we're looking at our drive slot here, excuse me, you'll notice we've got this metal cover over it. This is the heat sink, so that way the hard drive can stay cool as it's operating. So there are 2 screws we need to take out. So this screw by the D1 is captive, so it shouldn't pop out. It'll just stay in the whole time, no matter how much you screw it. And then one thing to notice on the bottom of the heatsink is thermal paste. This is what makes contact between the chip and the heatsink to transfer heat. It's got a little plastic cover over it, so keep it from sticking to anything before we're ready. So we'll peel that off right before we go to install it. But first we're gonna put our hard drive in. So, and again, like other components, just try and hold it by the side of the board to make sure you're not touching any of the electrical components. And you'll see there's a tab on the contacts at the end of the drive. You should see a small tab in the board as well. So just make sure it lines up. Everything we put in today, for the most part, will not need very much effort at all to get it in. So this will be installed at about a 45-degree angle. Just kind of give it a little wiggle till it feels like it's in the whole way. And I'm not sure if you can see very well on the camera, but you can see it's kind of angled as it's in. So that's the normal way for it to be installed. And then it'll be held down with the screws in the heatsink. Like Josh was saying earlier, we've done several of these. So if I'm going a little too fast at any point, feel free to speak up and let me know. If you have any specific questions, go ahead and ask. We can pause and just make sure everyone's on the same page. All right, so now that we've got our hard drive in, we're going to peel off the plastic from the thermal paste. So this is sticky, but it's okay if you do touch it. But we're just holding by the side just to try to keep it as clean as possible. So the way that I like to put these in is just very slightly hold the drive down flat on the board. And then we're going to line up the screw that's still in the heatsink with the screw hole at the end of the drive. And then you can also use the hole at the top of the heatsink just to make sure it's lined up with the hole that the screw goes into for that side. Yeah. We'll tighten the back one here. And when we're tightening everything, I'm not using any pressure at all. So I'm just very lightly tightening the screw, and as soon as it gets tight, that's all the more we need. And we'll repeat the same with the front screw here. So once those are tight, there shouldn't be any wiggling of the heatsink. And that's our hard drive installed to the board. All right, so now we'll get back to our regularly scheduled slideshow and get ready to install the motherboard into the case. So if we take a look at the motherboard, this large metal piece is the back. This is our input output panel. So you'll see on the back of the case, there's a large opening. So that is how we'll align it. We'll put the plugs facing out the back of the case. And then we've got our case fan on the back here. I'm just going to tuck the wire up top to get it out of the way for now. So however works for you. And then just to reiterate, we're looking for these 6 small standoffs for our mini ATX board. And on our motherboard itself, it may not come through too well in the camera, but there are certain screw holes that have like a shiny metal ring around it. So those will be the ones that we're looking to line up right there, and another one. So those are the ones that will line up with the standoffs in the case. Again, while holding it by the sides, we're just going to gently lower it down in. So it's generally a good idea to not scrape the board if you can help it, but they are sturdy. So whenever you get it close enough, when we go to make adjustments, it will, wiggle a bit on the standoffs from the case. So that's okay. Just as long as we're not pressing too hard or putting gouges or anything in the board, the motherboard will be okay. So you should be able to see all of the input output plugs and slots in the back of the case. And the board should feel pretty solid once it's locked into the standoffs. It'll kind of drop in ever so slightly. So if the board's wiggling around a lot, just try to move it a bit and get all of the standoffs to line up with these 6 holes we have on our motherboard. And then we'll want to get this bag of our small screws from earlier. So it comes with extras because some boards require more. So we just need 6 for this one. And the way we're going to put the screws in is we're going to cross thread them. So wherever you start, any spot is fine. We'll just put it in and just loosely tighten it once it's threaded in. Yep. And for instance, on our board here, it was off just a smidge. I'm just going to double check to make sure nothing's in the way. So I think a fan wire got in the way here. Okay, there we go. So there was a very slight metal tab on the back here that it was getting caught on. So usually the hardest part with getting the motherboards in is just this input output panel because they're designed to fit a specific measurement, but the tolerances are kind of tight with the back of the case. So sometimes you just gotta give it a little bit more pressure to get it in properly, but now I can see that our standoff screw hole lines up with the screw hole on the motherboard. Went in much easier that time. All right, so the cross threading I'm talking about is since we started with this one in the top corner for us, we're gonna go to the opposite side. And the reason we do that is to make sure when we tighten down the screws, we're not moving the board and getting it off balance. So that way all the holes stay lined up. And when I'm tightening these in, I'm just getting it threaded so the screw stays in, but not fully tightened down just yet. And then we'll repeat the same thing with the other corner. Get it in just a little bit to hold the motherboard in place, but not fully tightened. And then the one up here is a very tricky screw. So we'll give everyone a few minutes here to get all the screws in. And don't feel bad if you drop screws. It's going to happen a lot today. There we are. And we're going to finish off with our center screws here. All right, and now that all of our screws are in, I'm going to go back and just tighten them in the same order, just to make sure it doesn't pull too far one way or the other. And same as before, just tighten them enough to be tight, but don't over tighten them. The motherboard is still plastic, so if you screw it too tight, it can crack. Not always a disaster, but better safe than sorry. Yep, we're using the shorter screws. So it should be a bag that came with about, I don't know, 20 or so screws. We'll give everyone a few minutes here just to make sure everything's in securely. How's everyone coming along with the motherboard? Getting it all in? All right, we'll keep rolling. So, again, if anyone's got any questions or needs a little bit more help, feel free to speak up and we can slow back down. So the next step is we're going to install our RAM. You may hear this called memory. So we want this Vengeance Pro RGB box. We've got our large memory chips here with big heat sinks, make sure they run cool. So the slot on the motherboard they're going to go into will be these long black ones here. Same as the hard drive, you'll see there's a little notch in the middle to make sure it only goes one way. And then the other thing with this is generally when you put memory in and only have two, most times you'll alternate slots. So for instance, you'll go 1 and 3 or 2 and 4. Because there's not a lot of space in this case with the water cooler that we're going to put in later, we're going to put them in the first two slots. It's not going to be quite as efficient as it could be, but it's not going to affect the performance of the computer very much. So when I'm installing memory, I like to hold it sideways, just to make sure the notch is lined up. So I've got it backwards here, so I'm just going to flip it over. So for our build today, the Vengeance RGB Pro logo will be facing the front of the computer where these fans are. So two of these will be a solid notch, and then on the other side, there's two that you can push open. So I just pushed all of these, just a little pressure out, and they just slide right out. And then we're gonna line it up and just put it straight down in. So it's gonna be a little tight, but just rock it a little bit so it slides down. And then the last step will be to put some pressure. So I'm holding towards the edges so the board doesn't flex too much, but we just press straight down and you'll hear a snap. So the slot on the top side here will snap shut to hold it in place, and that's how you know it's in correctly. And then we'll just repeat with the second chip here. Once you hear it click, then it's installed completely. Okay, yeah, no problem, Madeline. We can we'll give you a few minutes here. Were you able to get it lined up at least, though? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to installing the CPU. So the box we're looking for is our blue Intel Core i5. Inside, you'll find a large cardboard holder with the fan that comes with the processor. So we only need the little chip here at the top. So our CPU slot on the motherboard here is where this plastic protector is. You'll notice there's a small triangle here on the corner of the protector that shows you which way to orient the processor when you install it. There's a matching triangle here. Not sure if we can focus well enough, but if we're looking from the top down, we've got our writing aligned so we can see it. So it just goes straight down like almost would make sense. So the first thing we need to do is to get our protector out of the slot. So there's a small hooked metal rod that holds the chip in place once it's installed. So this does have a strong spring holding it in, so you do need to put a little bit of pressure in to move it out of the way. So you just push down and slide it out from underneath that little clip that's holding it down. And then once the rod is fully extended towards the top of the case, we can lift up the metal or the plastic cover. And that can be discarded. So you'll see a metal bracket that holds the processor in as well. So we just want to lift that up out of the way. And then again, we'll carefully hold this by the side. So you can see there's circuitry on the bottom of this, very tiny pins. So the way that these are installed is they just drop right in. And there's notches on this as well to make sure it goes into the right spot. There should be no pressure or anything to get this in. Should just drop right in. It's going to wiggle just a small amount, which is what the metal bracket's for to hold. So we'll just gently place that back down and close the rod. So there will be a lot of resistance here, so you do need to press quite hard on the rod. But we'll just gently push it back down and slide it back under the hook to hold it in place. Is everyone able to get the CPU in with no trouble? Cool, seeing some thumbs up, thank you. All right, we'll keep rolling for now. The next box we're looking for is gonna be our Mag Core Liquid 240R V2 liquid cooling solution. So there is a lot of stuff that comes with this. The way that they design these is to make sure it fits with all sorts of different computer setups. So the first thing we'll see that we can take out will be our fans. These are easy enough to set aside for the time being. And then there will be some bags of assorted pieces. The one that we need for our specific build is this LGA 1700. So that's the bracket that holds the cooler to the board. So we'll keep this handy. Some other things we'll need are this 1 into 2 splitter for the fans. This will let us plug the 2 fans for the cooler into the motherboard. There's thermal paste. So this is the exact same that was used on that hard drive heatsink before. So this will go between our processor and the liquid cooler. And we have some assorted screws here. So this bag that's got 8 long ones and 8 short ones is the one that we're looking for. This will hold the fans to the radiator and the radiator to the case. And we also need, I believe these are the standoff screws. Nope, I'm wrong. So the ones we're looking for in this LGA bag. So these ones can be kept aside. We won't need those. And the other piece we're going to need is this 3/4 bracket. And then we'll also need this bag with the spring looking screws in to keep it tight. So there's a lot to unbox with this, but if you're following along with the slideshow, you'll see we've got it laid out, all of the contents of the box with arrows pointing to the pieces that we need and the pieces we can get rid of. So we'll carefully take our radiator and pump out of the box here and set the box aside. Now we'll unwrap our radiator here. The cardboard is to keep the fins safe and straight in transportation, and plastic just to keep everything nice and clean. So similar to like an air conditioner or a radiator in a car, there's fins. We want to try to make sure we don't bend these, but things happen. It's okay if some do get bent in the end. And then we'll see our hoses coming out of the radiator. This is what circulates the liquid. So we're installing this inside the top of the case, so the hoses will come down towards the bottom. So the screws we need for the radiator will be in this bag of 8 long ones and 8 short ones. So carefully open this so you don't drop any. There should be some extras, but if you don't have them all, it's okay, as long as the majority are there that can hold it tightly. So you'll see there are 8 screw holes on the top of the radiator. If we look at the top of our case, there's a magnetic cover for the fans to keep dirt and hair and stuff out. So we'll just slide that off. And you'll see we've got quite a few more holes than we need. So you'll just want to hold the radiator up to the top and just line up the holes. So the 2 important ones we're looking for are these 2 in the middle. that's where you know it's lined up, and you'll see the others do line up with these slightly inner more holes. And we'll just do the same cross threading we did with the motherboard, just to make sure that this is held in straight. I'm just doing a half to one turn on these screws for now, just to get them threaded and holding the radiator up. All right. If you do come across one being difficult like that one, feel free to, try another one. We'll still cross thread to the best of our abilities. And the way that I'm holding this to the top of the case is I have four fingers spread out to keep the pressure even across the side of the radiator. And I'm just squeezing with my thumb to keep it held to the top so we can get the screws screwed in. All right, and once we've got all our screws, we'll just go ahead and tighten them like before. All right, so we've got it tightened down. Some of these weren't lined up 100% closely, so they're not quite as flush as the others, but that's okay as long as they're tight enough to keep it sturdy and from moving. Just put our cover back over, and there you go. As far as anyone's concerned, your screws are perfectly flat. Give everyone a few minutes here to get that radiator installed. And then once that's in, we're gonna use the bracket with the adhesive on it. So the one from our LGA 1700 bag. All right, looks like most people are getting the radiator installed, so we'll move on to the next step. So we're gonna open up our LGA 1700 baggie. And get our bracket out. So this is the one with the adhesive strips on the bottom. So this piece actually goes onto the bottom of the board. So we're gonna flip our case over. Mine's upside down now. So here's the bottom and here's the top. But you'll see there's this exposed bottom side of the processor on the back. And you can just test fit it here so you know which way to orient it. But when you set down the bracket, you'll notice that the little standoffs in this bracket will slide right down into these holes. So, and as you can see, it doesn't really fit more than one way. Or does it? It does. So I'm gonna install it so the adhesive stick to the metal plate because I'm pretty sure that's the correct way. But the important thing is just making sure that this is firmly attached to the bottom because there's the bracket for the water pump that will screw into this. And we want to make sure that that's got a nice tight seal on the processor to make sure it stays cool properly. So we'll go ahead and peel off the adhesive tape. It's a bit tricky to get started. I think we had one person accidentally peel off the adhesive. If you do, you can kind of just press it back one. All right, so once we've got our adhesive exposed, we'll just go ahead and set it back down in. And I like to put some pressure on here just to make sure it sticks nice and evenly. All right, and flipping back over. Now you'll see we've got our screw holes here around the processor. The next screws we will need are also from that LGA 1700 bag. They're the long screws with the knob and a short end. Again, we'll go ahead and carefully open those.
I wouldn't call you a diva, Mike. It's a chai tea latte. No, chai
Chai.
tea, something. They didn't have mochas,
That's fine.
matchas.
Chai-
They gave you as close as possible.
That's cool. Thank
Here you
you.
go, kid. The latte.
That's so good though. Thank you.
Good?
Okay,
Good.
so the short end of the screw here is the one that will screw down into those little standoffs. And we're just gonna follow our cross-threading pattern again, just to make sure it's nice and even.
So Mike said that we could definitely do that.
And then once they're all in, we'll just cross-thread again. And these just need to be hand tightened as well. All right, so then going back to our 3/4 bracket here. We'll go ahead and unwrap the plastic from our pump.
Yeah, it sounds about jerseys. Yeah.
So you kind of see a little slot around most of this heat pump. That'll be the opening that our bracket slides into. So just get it lined up and it snaps right in place. Pretty easy.
16, 17.
And then before we move on, we're just gonna get this jumbled bag of screws open and we're gonna get the Phillips head screws with the spring on them. Those will be the tension screws that hold the pump tightly to the bracket we just installed. So you'll see 4 screws of springs and a Phillips head. So we just want to keep those handy for a moment. Which screws are you looking for,
I'm
Melvin?
assuming. Yeah, I mean, I can be the.
The ones that
Yeah.
hold the bracket to the bottom of the top and bottom are the long ones. Yeah, so they'll have been the ones that were in the LGA 1700 bag, but they are these long screws with a handle and a short end on it. So there is another bag that came with the cooler. I'm trying to see if I can find ours. But there are other screws that are similar to this one that they just have a thicker screw thread. So they should go in fairly easily to this bracket. So you just want the skinnier ones with the knob. No problem. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do before we attach the pump to the bracket is take our thermal paste tube. So these come with just enough that you can cover your processor with. The technique we're gonna use is just squeeze the whole thing right into the center of the processor.
And you guys are cooking.
Yeah, these guys are,
Yeah, you guys are.
like we're
cooking
flying
along.
through this. We might end up installing.
Yeah, hey, we might actually get installed. Very nice. Hi, everybody. I'm back, by the way. I'm back.
He's back. So the tube gets kind of tight when you're squeezing it. You don't need to press all that tightly. If there's still a little bit in the tube, it's fine. As long as we've got a good bit on the processor. So then what we're gonna do is take this plastic off of the heat sink. Just to make sure we got a nice, good contact. And then the hoses might be a little tight, so just try and work with those as best as you can. So what I like to do with these is just make sure we've got all 4 screws or all 4 of the holes over the screws. And then just push it straight down. So you want to try and keep even pressure on it. Doesn't have to be a lot, just make sure it's even. And what that'll do is make sure the thermal paste spreads evenly across the whole chip. And then we're going to take our screws with the springs and screw them over top of the posts again. This is much easier than using a standard cooler that such as the one that came with it. Those have the springs attached to the bracket all as one piece, and it's a hard juggling act to push everything down tight enough to get threaded in and even and not popping off. So thanks MFI for designing this easy cooler to use. And like before, once everything's kind of hand tightened, we'll just go back with the screwdriver and tighten it down again. So this is one of the ones where it's important that we make sure everything is tight. But again, we're just not over tightening things. The reason this is more important than most of the other screws is the processor is very dependent on staying cool enough to operate efficiently. So we just want to make sure we've got a good tight connection here with our water pump and heat sink. Excellent. Yeah, this is definitely much easier with an expert in the room. I think we've done really well with the last couple we've built. We were able to walk a few people through some tricky issues, but yeah, everyone's been an all-star with this so far. It's been a super fun experience getting to help everyone build these. All right, so our next deviation from the slideshow is installing the fans. We're gonna install these last because we've got some more things to do up in this area of the board. So just keep your fans handy on the side for now. We'll come back to those in just a few minutes. All right, next up, we're gonna do our video card, graphics card, however you like to call it. So that's gonna be our GeForce RTX 460 here.
I put that in last after, because if you put the things in, the screwdriver gets in the way.
Which things?
The fans on the top. And be able to make another alter, because getting
Oh, you
this
think
fan
that?
in, yeah, this blocks your hand from getting in there.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I would wait on that until the very,
alright.
very last thing.
No problem. All right, setting this back aside.
Sorry, that's something I just went through, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, it's a good idea.
It does make sense because when we're putting the fans in, it's so tight up in this corner. It's nice to have this whole area open. Okay, so got our fan splitter cable with the fans. Next up, we've got our power supply. So this one is the most fun thing to install. Just kidding. It's not too bad. I think we've figured out the best way to install these power supplies at this point. So in our box, we've got manual and quick guide. We've got our bag of cables here. So these are modular power supplies. These are nice because a standard power supply has all of these cables permanently. So we've got the luxury of only using the ones we need. It keeps the case build looking nice and neat, and it just makes it a lot easier to manage where you're running everything. So then we've got our power supply down here in the bottom. And as you can see, it's very nice, very mobile. Yeah, don't have a mass of cables flopping around. So just for reference, we've got our labels here on it. So we've got 2 motherboard, we've got 2 CPU, and we've got several labeled VGA. That's short for video graphics array, which is the standard format for video cables for computers for a while. So it's kind of just stuck, but that will be where the power for our graphics card, our GPU goes. And then you've got some extra ones here for peripherals, like if you have like a fast charging expansion card or some standard hard drives, they'll get plugged into here as well. All right, so first lesson we learned from before is we're going to take our cables out of the bag. Careful of the tiny bag of screws. These are what hold the power supply to the case once it's ready to be installed. So we've got our big bag of cables and they're all labeled. So the ones that we're looking for first is this one here with large connectors at both ends. This will be our motherboard power supply. And then we will also need a PCIe. So PCIe is PCI Express. That's the standard of the slot, the expansion slots on the board. So this will be for our video card. So our video card just needs one 6+2 connector. So I know there's one cable in here. Yeah, so we've got one here that's just got one plug. So we're just gonna look for that one for PCIe, just to keep it a little bit neater inside the case when we're running cables. And then the other cables we are looking for are labeled CPU. So here's one,
Design like this, put it inside.
and here's the other. So to summarize, 2 CPU, 1 PCIe, and our main motherboard. So I'm going to put the rest of our flat ribbon cables back in the bag. And we'll just keep the power cable for the wall separate, since we'll need that later to plug them up. The bracket that goes from the bottom of the board, Albert. Sorry, I just saw your message here.
Yeah. Because we have to start raising money.
So the screws for that bracket, the smaller end of the screw will screw down into the holes that are coming from the bottom up. And that will go in basically the whole way as far as that's concerned. You'll screw in down to that little nub handle. So once you've got the 2 screws or the 4 screws with the 2 sides screwed down, you'll take the bracket for the heat sink and water pump here and put that down over top of them. And you also want to make sure you've got that thermal paste on top of the processor before you put the pump fully on. And then once you've got the pump with the bracket, you'll look for those screws with the springs on them. And then you'll tighten those down. If you're still having a bit of trouble with that, just let us know again. I'll keep moving on to the power supply cables for now. So we're just about done. So we'll have time to go back and help out if anybody's still having trouble. All right, so I'm flipping over to the back here first. So the two cables that I think are probably the hardest ones to get in are these CPU cables. They're just in a kind of tight area. And they're a bit of a pain to get plugged in. So you'll see on the cable, there's a small tab, and that is what holds it in place. And you can see if you squeeze it, it releases a bit. So give me 1 sec, I'll grab our sample board here. So the CPU plugs will be going to these two up here. It's not quite as easy to see for example purposes for those, but if we look at the main motherboard power, or yeah, it's the power for the motherboard here. So you can see there's this small indentation at the top of it that the clips go over. So all of our power cables are going to have a similar clip, and they all only go in one direction. So if you're struggling, try flipping it around, and don't put too much pressure. They should take a little bit to go in just because of how tight the tolerance is, but it shouldn't take enough where you're struggling to push down too hard. One of the mistakes I made on my first computer build was pushing too hard and ended up bending something I needed replaced. All right, so the one thing I found out is the direction of these cables does matter. So the CPU labeled end is the one that goes into the motherboard. And what we're going to do first is through the one cutout up here in the corner, I'm just going to put that through. And if you'd like, you can do both at the same time, but just for example purposes, I'm going to do one at a time. So it's probably going to be a little difficult to see, especially since we've got a lot of things in the way, but I've got our cable pulled up through here. And then I'm going to take a look over here and see which direction the tab goes. So I can feel the little extra plastic tab is the top side here towards the radiator. So I'm just going to make sure to spin our cable so the clip is facing up. And we're going to plug it in. So that just clicks and snaps right in, similar to how the memory was installed. Pretty easy. If you'd like to imagine some suffering, imagine us having the video card in and the radiator fans in and everything in, trying to plug these in. But we learn. So I'm just going to flip back over and just run our second CPU cable through our little slot here. So do whatever's comfortable for you. I'm just having it stand up for now. And these cables are meant to be flexible. You don't want to pinch them if you can help it, but it's just power. So it's a fairly simple on off for the most part. So they will flex, but try to avoid creasing or pinching them if possible. I think this one slid on without clicking like the first one. So I'm just giving it a little tug to make sure it's not loose and not coming out. But they look good. So I'm going to flip back over. And just make sure our cables are straight. And ultimately, they're gonna come down to where the power supply goes, so I'm just gonna tuck them in through and out the back for now, just to keep them sort of out of the way while we run the rest of the cables. And the next one we'll do is the main motherboard. So you can see on the right side of the case, we've got some rubber grommets. Those are where you can run your cables just to keep them on the back side where they're going to be hidden to keep the build looking neat. So I'm going to run our motherboard power through this top one. So flipping over, just making sure we keep the orientation in mind. So I'm going to put it through this one here. So it's next to the processor bracket we installed. And for our motherboard cable, there's no labeling on this one, but we want the single solid piece to go to the board. The other end is this split one that will go to the power supply. So I'm just gonna put it right through and flip back over. As with the CPU cables, just gonna swing it around and press in. So I'm not getting a click on this one either. And what I'm doing, since this is a larger one, is I'm just kind of trying to support the motherboard a little bit with my fingertips on the sides of the board while I push in. I'm not getting a click here, so I'm just kind of helping it with my fingertip on the end of the tab, but got that pretty solidly in. So flip back over. And our last cable to go through will be our PCIe. So we want the 6+2 end to go through to the motherboard, and the solid piece will go to our power supply. So since our video card is going to end up towards the bottom of the computer, actually, I think this one goes in the middle. Yeah, we'll do the middle one for the power supply. I think that's a little closer. Since our video card's not in right now, just going to put that through. All right, how's everyone doing with the cables? Are they able to get them through into the right spots? All right. So for the power supply, you'll notice we've got a big fan here. This is the fan we want pointing towards the bottom of the case, so that way it can go out this vent. And then the power switch and power plug will go out the backside. So it'll look like this when it's installed. The writing will be upside down for as far as this case goes. Totally okay. But before we put the power supply down in here, we're gonna get our cables and plug them into the power supply. So I'm gonna start with our motherboard ones since they're the biggest. So you'll see on the power supply, there's a small notch for the little clip to go into. So I did notice with our motherboard one, the larger one goes in, and that one is hassle-free, but then the additional one had to just bend it a little bit to swing it around to go the other way. So pretty easy. These ones are a little harder to push in, but you'll hear them click like the other stuff that we've connected to the motherboard and everything else. And then we'll do the same with our CPU ones. So these are all the same size as the PCIe. I don't think it matters a whole lot which one goes where because the power voltages and everything are the same for the plugs. But since we know these two are CPU, we're going to go into the CPU slot and then this other one that's labeled as CPU as well, just to keep everything nice and in order. And then finally, our other PCIe cable for the video card. So again, we've got multiple choices here. Doesn't matter which one it goes into number wise. So I'm just going to keep it all together to keep it a little more neat. No problem. So after the cooler, if you're following along with the slideshow, we're skipping the graphics card for right now, just so we have room to run everything. So we are on, no, we've got 2 step 6s on the slideshow, but we're on the install the power supply step. I'll write you some notes here in chat real quick because we've got good steps in the slideshow, but we found some little intricacies. So when you install the power supply, you'll want out of the cable bag 2 times CPU cables, 1 times PCIe cable, and then motherboard cable. And at the end of the install power supply step, you'll see a picture of the motherboard that shows you where to run the power cables for the CPU and the GPU. Well, actually, it looks like we don't have an arrow for GPU. So for the CPU cable, And let's see that was the one step that messed me up on our first build. Ended up having to take so much stuff out to switch the cable orientation. And then the other thing with running the cables, I'll get this power supply installed and then I'll show you the holes I ran the cables through just to make it a little neat for you. So to wrap up installing our CPU here, or our power supply here, we've got our 4 screws that came in the power supply box. Those safe and handy. So I'm going to get all of our extra cables out of the way. So these are our front panel cables and RGB controller cables. So we should be able to slide our power supply straight down in, making sure the fan goes towards the bottom of the case. And because we've got so many cables, you might need to just massage those to get them to cooperate. But it should eventually just drop right down in. So with the power supply, this one was a bit tricky to get it to line up with the screw holes. So the way that I'm holding it here is I've got fingers on both sides of our power cables, and I'm kind of just squeezing it and lifting it up just a little bit to get these screw holes lined up. So you kind of have to lift as well as push it towards the back of the case to get it to stay straight enough. And I'm just going to quickly get a couple of these screws in just to hold it. They don't need to be perfect or go in all the way right now. All right, so I've got my screws in, very far from perfect, but since I'm holding it by myself, it gives me some leverage to hold it. So no, we're good. I got it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You guilt trip me there.
No,
people.
no, no, not at
You
all.
guilt
I'm,
trip me.
I'm
That's what
just,
he
I'm
did.
giving advice.
Straight guilt trip me.
So since the other screws are holding it in, I'm able to go back out just a bit to make sure they're straight and then screw them in the rest of the way. So I did notice on the other ones we built as well, these screws were a little harder to screw in at some points. I think it's just because the cutouts for the screw holes are built to fit multiple different power supply layouts. So it shouldn't take much effort to keep screwing it in. As long as it's straight and going smoothly initially, it should be good. So that's that for the power supply. So Malvern, I'll flip back over here to show you where we've got our power cables run through. So the first one is our 2 CPU cables. There's a trapezoidal cutout here up at the top. So this will be the top of the computer right underneath the radiator. So we put the 2 of these through to the front. And they plug into the 2 connectors right here. They're right next to this large silver heat sink. And for everybody else, I'm going to take this time as well to just kind of pull the slack through to the back. We want these cables out of the way as much as possible so we have room to get our fans in. So it's not gonna come across very easily, but I was able to get them completely clear of the radiator. Just that way, when we do put our fans in here, there's nothing in the way of them. And then we'll repeat that step with our PCIe labeled power cord. That one I put through the middle rubber grommet because that will line up where the video card ends up going installed. And then lastly, the large motherboard power cable is the one with the biggest connector. The end that goes to the power supply is the one that's split in two pieces. And the main motherboard power connector for the front is a single piece. So that just goes right here. And I did that through the top grommet since it lines up right where the board is. Yep, no problem. It's way up here. I think that one was made after one of our initial runs, so it wasn't in any of our emails leading up. But it's very handy. And it works for pretty much any computer build. The nice thing is we took pictures of this specific build to keep it easy. All right, so we're almost done, everybody. We've just got some fans to put in.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, these guys are rock
You
stars.
guys
They're
are
great.
pro status, boys and girls. Pro status.
All right, so tricky part is hopefully everyone kept all of our random connectors that we've pulled out through this whole process.
Watch Mike. Mike
So this one
build PCs.
we want is kind of a braided cable. It's a single into two pigtail connector. And then we're also going to grab our fans for the cooler here.
Action shot. No, no pose, no dramatic pose. Boom. By the way, the world, we're TikToking this out to the world. We're not putting you guys on display, but we are TikTok. So if you hear me talking randomly in some sort of like a millennial voice, it's TikTok.
Social media addiction.
Social media.
You hate to
addiction.
see it.
I mean, it is what it is, right?
I've checked these table legs several times.
I checked table legs today.
We're not dropping this computer. Not today. Everything's been going too smoothly.
31 gaming PCs in the last 2 weekends.
All right, everybody. So for our radiator fans, the dragon logo will be facing in.
Thank you for the donations from.
And you'll see we've got two connectors. So this one with the round plugs that splits is the RGB connector. And this other one with the square connector and 4 holes is the actual fan connector. So I'm just gonna untwist tie these so we can route them through to the back of the case.
Yeah, so grand total 31. Gaming clubs, great start lovers are teaching how to build PC gaming PCs through Scrap Key Smart Grant. So super excited.
So the way that I like to orient the fans is where the cables are coming out, I like to have facing down, just so there's no extra slack gonna get caught on any fan blades or anything.
31.
And it's right near the hole that we're gonna pull through.
Super excited. We are on. the
So
way to
I'm gonna
finishing
route
31st
these
of
through. I'm gonna stand it up to do it,
funds to help
but
us raise
you can
money
pick one of
for
these
50 million
trapezoidal holes like the ones we ran the CPU power cables through.
Nintendo Switch, the grant, it's out there. We give away for free. We need your help getting.
And again, anything with this step is wherever is easier for you to run cables.
That's it. Shout out to MTD Properties for hooking us out.
So I've got my 2 through. I'm gonna pull the slack as close as I can. And we're just gonna gently tilt back over since our fan's loose. And then I'm holding it up a bit just to pull the slack through a little more. You can pull the slack through once the fan is attached. So we're going way back to these screws that came out of the radiator screw bag. These are the long metallic ones that have just a small bit of thread on the end. So there should be 8 in total for the fans. And the easiest way to install this is just put your screw the whole way through and kind of just hold it with a little pressure till you get the hole lined up. And just screw in just a little bit so it stays in, but it's not fully tight. Because this part is tricky. Unfortunately, since we don't have our GPU in, we have plenty of space.
Yay! Going out.
Hopefully your toolkit has tweezers. We're picking these up. But you guys are amazing, so you're probably not dropping screws like I am. So this one that I'm putting in, the lower left one, is one of the trickier ones, just because there's not a lot of room and you can't really see the hole to line up. So it's a lot of just feeling where it goes. And yep, we've got it in just enough to hold. So I'm going to move to the lower right one, just another tricky one. But since we've got the 2 diagonal screws in, that one should find its spot fairly easily. And lastly, our top one. All right, since I've got them all in, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down. All right, and we've got one fan on. That was the easy one. So our next stop is the second fan. Same deal as the first one. The only thing that makes this tricky is because we got cool memory with big heat sinks and glowy lights, this fan does not like to sit as easily as the first one. So what we've done with this one is we just put in 3 of the screws. As long as it's tight and not wiggling around, your airflow is not going to be affected. But I'm gonna, again, run our cables through to the back first, just to keep them out of the way.
I like your post, man. It's nice. Post. Post.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay, so we've got one plug for the radiator. This is for the thermostat, so it knows how hot everything is for the water cooling. So I'm just gonna set that to the side for now. And then go back through and get the rest of our slack pulled through.
So you just slide that. Or like, you know, I guess like, yeah.
And I think while we're thinking about it, what I'm gonna do first before I put this fan in. So I'm gonna, give me 1 sec, I'll grab our handy dandy model board. So since the area we're working in up here is kind of tight once the fans are on, we have one connector for a fan over here labeled pump fan. So this is the one that we're going to put this top cable from the radiator into. And then up here we have CPU fan. So what we're going to do with that one is we're gonna take our 1:2 splitter with the braided cable. And we're just gonna plug that in first. So it's got a notch here, like most everything else, and then there's two I'm not sure how to call these, but there's two bits of plastic that basically, yeah, I guess that could be tabs. Yeah, so you'll line these up with the slot on the board. So it only goes in one way. And it is a little tricky because they're long pins. So you kind of just want to gently line it up. And once it's straight, just with a little bit of pressure, just push down one. So I'm gonna go ahead and install that on ours. I'm actually gonna just take the main connector in through the back.
Yeah, today. People store the capital. Yeah, think about that. Yeah, 3 years ago today, when he was in prison, he's probably not getting it. Supreme Court's hearing the decision, buddy. You know that? What's that? The Supreme Court is listening to the arguments about Colorado. So they're gonna have to go on the record saying if he did actually start an insurrection. Supreme Court's gonna wait. But the Supreme Court's gonna wait and Trump's taking it because
All right, got that on. Little tricky, but I'm glad we did that before putting the fan.
maybe. We're betting, I'm betting. I feel like Supreme Court-
Okay, so since we've got that connector in, I'm gonna go ahead and finish getting this second fan installed.
Not my side. Yeah. Two of them are outspoken. So they're not.
Okay, so when you go to line this up, you'll see it doesn't quite sit as easily because of the memory down here.
The whole system is having a real problem. Someone's gotta grow up and.
So I'm gonna try and get this bottom right corner screw installed first, just to give us some solidness to work with. So that's good. And then on the other ones I found, you can push down a little bit. So when I was pushing down now, I could see like my memory was sliding back and forth. So you don't want to bend the memory at all. But I'm able to just push down just a slight bit and get this screw in. So this one did take more pressure than anything else. But there we go. So we got it. So I think what that did is it just pushes a little bit on the plastic of the memory. It's not ideal, but I'd like to at least get 3 screws in.
Yeah, about it, I don't know. This is.
Yeah, so you see once the couple are in, the rest go in pretty easily. I'm just gonna try the 4th one. I think it should go in pretty easily now that the rest are in.
Let me look at it real quick.
Yeah, so that one's still not cooperating. But at the very least, we've got the top 2 and the bottom right one. That's gonna hold the fan in and just make sure it's not swinging around or moving or anything as it's operating. Is everybody able to get their fans in okay? Looks like we're still working. Alright, we're getting close to the end of the allotted time. I'm gonna hang out for a bit. We've got cool frosted windows, so I don't know if we're actually snowed in or not, but
That's not bad.
no, I don't think it is. I'm not worried about it. So if anyone needs to go, don't feel bad. We're gonna have this recorded and uploaded for reference. But just in the interest of time, in case anyone does need to leave at 12:30, we're just gonna wrap up pretty quickly as far as turning the computer on goes. So I might go a little fast on this part, but if you have any questions, I'll drop my email in the chat real quick too, so you can reach out if you need to. So that's my email for reference later if you need any help. Okay, so the last few things that we need to plug in is we've got a couple fans left to plug in. We've got our pump fan here to plug in.
Yeah.
And we still need to get our video card put in. So while we have some room up here, we're gonna find this pump fan slot right in the corner. And you can untwist this if you want, however you'd like to manage it. You just want to make sure that the wire's not rubbing against these fan blades, because it will be fine. The fans shouldn't break the cable, but it will be very annoying when the fans are spinning. So I'm just gonna pull out a little bit of slack, and I'm gonna go outside our hoses right onto this fan connector. So all the fans will only fit one way. For reference, this one only has 3 slots, but there's 4 pins. So you just want to make sure that you have the tabs lined up with the notch on the board. So don't force it and take your time with this part, because this one is where it's going to start getting tricky with trying to reach in and not being able to get your fingers down in, or not be able to quite clearly see what you're doing. But again, just the smallest bit of pressure to get that pushed down.
Smirkies is just Smirky with 2 Ys.
That's not him.
I just clicked on it.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, that's him. There's 200 columns.
Yeah, no, that's it. I'm clicking on the link from his website.
Wait, for the street side?
Yeah. He has
Yeah, because
664.
Huh?
He has 664 followers.
We find on his website now.
Yeah.
All right, I think what I'm gonna do for the time being, I'll have to look through our cables to see if we've got one, but I'm gonna leave our rear exhaust fan unplugged for now, just to make sure we've got our pump plugged in. So we do have a system fan slot right here. It's just above where we installed our solid state drive and between the metal for the input output heatsink. Oh, actually, you know what? These are only RGB connectors, so we can plug our back fan in here. All right, so fan going in just like the rest. Just keep an eye on which direction that tab's going. And while we're at it, I'm just gonna untwist these RGB connectors and get those routed through the back. This is the extra fun part with everything in the way. So this one is not necessary for the operation of anything. It just makes the cool dragon logo on the pump glow.
That's worth every penny.
It's worth it for sure. But I can basically do this with my eyes shut, pushing it through. It's a lot of feeling where it should go and reaching from both sides. So no need to rush anything. Just get everything together at your own pace. All right, so we've got our 2 fans plugged in through the back. We've got our case fan and we've got our pump RGB through the back. So the last thing we're going to put in, back to our video card. So inside the box, we've just got our card with the anti-static bag. So So I'm actually gonna leave that in the bag for just a moment while we make space to install the card. So the expansion slot, the PCI slot we want to put it in is this one with the metal bracket around it. That is reinforced because some of the bigger video cards are heavy, so it keeps it from bending the slot if your computer stands like how ours is. So there is a plastic tab on the back of the slot similar to that one on the memory, so it'll snap open and shut. And then on the back here, you can take the screws out through these top down holes. If you're having trouble reaching it, there's 2 screws holding that bracket on. So however works for you. But we need to make room for our video card. And for the most part, you'll find with modern video cards is they are wide, so they take up 2 slots. So what you can do, and what I've done when I've installed extra cards in my own computer, is I'll sort of almost put it in just to see which slots it lines up with, because they are kind of tight when you look in here. This case and board is designed assuming a video card is going to be in this first slot, so it's always going to be the top 2 most of the time. All right, so we want to keep these screws that we just took out, but these case covers, these are just to keep dirt and stuff from getting in the case if you don't have a card. So you can just keep these if you want to, or you can just recycle those. And then for installation of the card, just have a few things here to get it ready before we can put it into the board. And like the other stuff, try not to grab it by the board itself. These are nice because it's got a large cooling system on it. So this is plastic and that's safe to grab. So we're going to peel the plastic off of this just to make sure that nothing melts when the card gets heated up. This part of the card shouldn't get hot, but yeah, better safe than sorry. Plus peeling plastic off of electronics is the most satisfying aspect of all of this. So there's plastic on the front and back. And then we've also got a plastic cover over the pins. So just pull that straight off. And now we've got our nice graphics card ready to install. So on the card, you'll see the metal bracket on the front has these tabs. These slide down between the motherboard and the case. So there's not a lot of room, but that's what keeps the card stable. So when I install cards, I like to try and get those tabs in the front down as best as I can. And then, so it's lined up for the most part, but just to be sure, we're going to peek over and just make sure the slot and the pins on the card are lined up. So I'm looking through the fan. So you can see through the fan just a little bit. If you look down at an angle, I'm able to see the pins. And I've kind of gently put it down in, but it's not the whole way because it's got to snap into place. So once I know it's lined up, I'm just going to push down with even pressure across the whole card. So I hear my snap, and I also have my screw holes lined up for the top of the bracket. So we're going to go ahead and fasten these screws back in. Hopefully not drop them everywhere. So this part where it might be beneficial to just take that whole back bracket off if you need to. If you're really good at playing Operation, you can try and drop them down straight in from the top. All right, so we've got our card screwed in. And what I'm doing now is just pulling up our PCIe cable.
Okay, Monica? So, this video violates our community guidelines? What video? One I just shot. What that?
Since I use that shorter single connector PCI cable, I'm just going back through here and getting it out of the way of the rest of the ones. If you use that longer one, you're probably okay. All right, so the hardest part is keeping the secondary 2-pin connector on, but what you can do is just put the two pieces together and then slide the larger one up to the 2 pins. So it should feel pretty solid. And then like every other PCI and power connector we've used, there's a tab at the top for the clip. So we'll just go ahead and get this on.
The trading money. So, their violation reason trade a regular service. Yeah. So the way that the AI picked it up is they thought you were talking about traffic. So you have to, yeah. It's Chinese, man.
All right. Mine's a little tight because I like to be neat. Don't put yourself through the same struggle if you don't have to. And then I'm going to flip back over to the back for a moment. So the CPU wire from the heat pump will connect to this main control board in the back. This is the RGB controller. So we'll do that one real quick since it was brought up. So I'm going to grab all of our fan connectors. So this one is from one of our intercooler fans. So it's got the same round plug. So what I'm going to do is take the connector off of one and I'm going to chain them together. And then I'm going to grab our pump fan connector and do the same thing. I'm going to take the other connector off and plug into the pump fan. And then they're all connected together. So what we can do is just plug them into the RGB controller. And what that does is there's an RGB button on the front, so you can just toggle the different lighting modes through that. Okay, we're going to go way back to the beginning. This fan wire that I had mentioned before. This one is for our 3 case fans, which are on the front side here. The way this one looks is it has one fan connector that will go into the board. And we've got 3 splitters here on the end for the 3 case fans. So the case fans are just over here. They're zip tied. I'm going to try and leave them zip tied. We'll see how it goes. But if anything's too tight, feel free to unzip tie them. And you can always go back and clean this up later. But you'll notice on this one, we've got 2 plugs with 3 pins and 1 with 4. It doesn't matter which one goes where. That's just if you have a specific set of fans that might have RGB controls or like a on-off lighting switch. If they're in sequence, that 4-pin one will let you toggle the lights on or off. All right, so I've got our fans connected. So those are our front fans. I'm gonna connect our back fans as well. So these are the splitter plug that we installed earlier for the radiator fans. All right, so they have power and will spin. And then the cables that I came to the back here for are these front panel connectors. So one is this one labeled USB 3. Another one we're looking for is this HD audio for the speaker connectors. There's this one that I don't think is labeled. I think this is for external drives, but there is a spot on the front of the board we'll see in just a moment. But it's the like silvery connector with wings on both ends. And then finally, we should have a front panel cable. Where'd you go? So these ones are all the ones that you'll see like running down the side. They come from the top panel here. So they all come out around here. Let's double check. I think our front panel
Like actually look what he do something.
it didn't come through. All right. So I'm just gonna unvelcro everything, make it a little easier to find. There it is, front panel. So the front panel one is the most important. That's the one that controls the power and reset buttons. So what I'm gonna do with these is I'm gonna route them through the bottom here by the power supply. There's another one of those trapezoidal
No idea
cutouts
why, but
for cable management.
while we were building PCs with live ones. We go back a few times. So we went with 31 inputs going on mine, getting PC built, Steve Education. Thank you. If you can donate, please do.
All right, so we've got those snuck through. Don't want to forget our front panel. All right, so when we flip back over. We'll now see all of our cables down here at the bottom. So if you look closely, you'll see one in the very bottom corner labeled JFP1. That will be our front panel. So we'll go ahead and get that one on. You'll notice on this one, there's a pin missing in the top right, and on the connector, also one pin missing. So just make sure those are lined up. And it goes straight down on. So since our case did not have two standoffs here, there's gonna be a little bit of flex when you go to push that on. So you can support the board a little bit with holding it on the side, or just wiggle the cable a little bit just to get it down on. All right, so next we're gonna do our HD audio. This one is in the bottom left corner. It's labeled JAUD1. And again, it's got a pin missing, same layout as the front panel, just with the pin in a different spot to make sure you don't get them mixed up. So we're gonna go ahead and get that one on there. And then our USB and external drive are these two over here. So they're right below the motherboard main power. So the USB has a tab in it, much like everything else, and you can see the tab cutout is facing the inside of the board. So just put that one in there. And our external drive one. This one has an arrow on it and an arrow on the board. So you just want to make sure those corners are lined up. It goes right down on in. And then very finally, we're going to come back for our fan connector. We've got this guy. We're going to send it. I'm going to go out this bottom one here just to make it a little easier. So I've got our fan coming out here towards the bottom, and our final fan system connector is this one over here. It's labeled SysFan2. So we're just going to go ahead and get our fans plugged in so they have power. And we've got everything plugged in. All right, so for our final test, I'm going to go ahead and plug in our power and just make sure it turns on. So what I'm going to do first before plugging it in is on the very back, Mike's away. On the very back is the main power switch. I'm just going to set it to the 0 so it's off when I plug in, just to make sure we're all good. So we're plugged in. Looks like everything's clear of all the fans. Backside's a mess like usual. That's okay. So I'm going to flip our main power switch back on and see what happens. All right, we have no power. So what I've noticed is my front panel connector was off to the side by one set of pins. So the power button was not working. All right, got her on. So you'll notice all the fans should be spinning. They're not lit up. We'll try our LGB. I'm not 100% sure if this fan controller needs software for the RGB controller. But the important thing is we've got power and we've got fans. So our computer is running. It doesn't know what to do with itself, but because it's not shutting off, we know everything's been plugged in and there's no shorts or anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and press the power button again to turn it off for now. And just gonna turn our main power off. So for everyone still with us, if you have any questions, feel free to, speak up, type in chat. I'll see if I can help you out. I'm gonna type in some information for everybody for installing Windows. The process is pretty easy.
Michael, do we have set of standard intro and outros for like these events?
All right,
Well,
so
TikToks and things like
this
that,
first link I'm gonna send is
Do we have
the
a
page
intro
for the motherboard where you can
intro and
download
outro,
drivers.
like TikToks? Can you give me like a 2-second,
So I did notice after
Like a
installing
type-
Windows, there were some
Yeah,
drivers that
you want
you
to
install.
intro and outro one?
Um,
Okay.
what you could
I can do
do
that. that I can just use
is
repetitively?
go to your drivers. To the drivers download page. And you can see which ones are missing, but another thing you can do is just, if you go through and download the driver for all of these things, you can basically do everything up to the LAN drivers. And the one that I noticed was missing was the Wi-Fi. So if you're not able to connect to a network cable to finish installing Windows and download drivers, you can download the Wi-Fi driver here from manually and run it. And then what that should do is that lets it connect to Wi-Fi to download the rest of the drivers. So that's the first thing. And then motherboard manual. That's nice to have, just to have for reference when you go to install Windows. So the key you'll need is F11 when the computer powers on. So if you boot the computer up and tap F11, what that'll do is takes you to the boot select screen. And if your Windows installed USB is plugged in, you should see something listed. I forget exactly what it was called, but it was basically the same thing listed twice. You just press enter. Plug USB in. So that will get you into the Windows installer. And then for installing Windows, you'll just do install now. Select Windows 11 home. We'll keep the defaults for most of the selections. And I believe you can click the upgrade install, but we'll just do custom install advanced. Defaults again. So I think those last little bit of things will help you get Windows installed. We did do a session where we did install Windows, and I believe we're gonna work on getting that video uploaded to YouTube as well. So you'll have that for reference, but I'm hoping these little bit of information will help you get it finished the rest of the way out. So that one is. I did the braided one into the CPU fan connector here in the top right. So in our case. That connector is underneath the fans here on the radiator. So it's this one right here next to the memory slots. And then the cable from the radiator went into this one on the side for the pump fan. Is it coming together pretty well for everybody else?
You guys still got 10 minutes, man. They're just, I mean, you're right on time today, dude.
Well, it's a one.
Yeah, it's still one technically.
Yeah.
Normally we ended about 12:30, but like this one's gonna be a longer.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's technically from 10:30 to 1.
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
right on time.
Yeah, I was rushing a bit towards 12:15.
You started asking for questions and feedback and I was like, okay, he's in a real good spot, cause if they're just problem solving now.
Yeah, like I don't think anyone. Yeah, we had a couple people going from weather. Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Like I said, just email me if you have any questions about finishing it up.
Send us pics. Take a pic with your kids, man. That's the other thing. Take a picture, put it out in the world. At VGC USA, everything. If you got pictures of it running, that's the type of thing we love to see. We love to put out to the world that kids are actually doing stuff with their hands, you know, getting active. So if you could, that'd be super, super cool of you. Okay, just that's it. And we repost everything you post to us. So you know how it goes, social, right?
Mm, I don't want to be distracting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's just easier to keep it on the computer too, so I can easily just jump back over and show stuff.
Apparently my appeal, I think my appeal went through because all of a sudden I'm seeing it.
How's you? Shout them out now.
Tell it up, Leechburg! I think I'm gonna order a pizza. You want a pizza?
make people.
Thanks, everyone.
Nope.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I hope everyone learned something and had some fun.
Get mad. Come here.
Yeah, there we go. That's like a whole, what, 15 different versions, different colors. Bring the
All right, we'll see if everyone can enjoy my struggle with getting the back panel on. Generally, the smart thing to do is go back, neaten up your cables, and use your twist ties to get them nice and orderly. But nobody does that. Let's try and squeeze the case on without breaking any wires.
Okay, yeah, wrap it up, man.
Does everyone remember where their case screws were? So with the case, there's little slots for the panel. So as long as it's slotted in, you're good. The back is going to lift up a bit because it's not slotted the whole way. So since it's bulging a bit, I'm just pressing down a little to get these screws in. But once it's on, they're not going to hurt anything being a mess back there. That's why this is solid. So we can hide our shame. The only thing that matters is the front looks cool and clean. Let's see. So if you're not getting any power, what I would do is double check the main power cable for the motherboard and the CPU power cable. for the
Mike.
board.
Mike.
Lost our table again.
Almost lost the table again.
Yeah. So check the motherboard and CPU power cables. Just double check that the main power switch is set to the 1 for on. And I know ours, I didn't have that front panel connector on right, so the power button it basically wasn't doing anything because the computer didn't register it. So those would be the 3 things I would check first that are the easiest. Beyond that, it's just a matter of checking all of your components and making sure they're installed, correctly and the whole way in to make sure nothing's shorting out.
I have a Mac part. I have a I just can't do it.
You know? These boxes are- Yeah. I'm gonna just leave this one here. I'll clear it up before the kids dead. Well, the kicker is that one here. This one never gets used.
No, it gets used.
Does it?
Keith
Okay.
uses it.
This one, not that
No,
one.
he uses both of them. It's just,
Okay,
it's, if he's editing stuff, he's on that one. If he's doing just basic work, he's on that one.
okay.
He swaps. And like Jake, if there's, it's a day like
Yeah, yeah,
Jake is here, he'll be on that.
There you go.
Oh, hello.
Hi, there you are.
Hey, now, what we're noticing is like, I mean, should I hear minimally the fan on the power supply?
So you're able to hear the fan, but the computer.
No,
itself-
I'm not able to hear. That doesn't look like the fan is going on the power supply.
Is the fan on everything else running?
No, nothing's running at all.
Okay, so nothing's powered on. You're not getting any lights on the memory or anything like that.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a matter of checking, all the connections. I don't know if these have a way to test the power supply. But yeah, I would double check your main motherboard
sure it's
power and your
plugged in
two
all the way.
CPU ones. Yeah, just
Uh-huh.
plugged in the whole way. There is a small possibility something somewhere along the way could be like a defective part. We might just have to do an exchange with MSI. So,
Right.
but we'll try to rule that out first.
Okay, all
And
right.
then the other thing you can do is as you're testing things, take pieces out that aren't necessary. So for instance, you could take the video card out just to make sure that might not be causing any issues. You can take out one stick of RAM, or you can even try it with both of them out to see if it starts up. So you'll just like slowly put pieces back in as you test it to see if maybe one of them is causing the issue.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure if we should have heard the fan on the power supply, with nothing else, but,
No,
Okay.
those are pretty quiet. I would be surprised. There is on the bottom that mesh comes out, so you could see if the fan is spinning through that. I believe if you take the mesh off.
yeah, I did pull it so I could see it. It's not spinning. But, and I don't know if it's supposed to just, by itself.
No, it's like that won't come on if the rest of the computer is not running. I think that one's generally if it's hot, it'll start running, but it's not 100% on all the time.
The graphics cards?
Yeah, the power supply.
Yeah, I don't think it, mine doesn't.
Yeah, it's just that's an as needed kind of fan.
Okay, we'll keep checking here. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, check it out. If you're not able to get it today and just have any other questions, let me know.
Okay.
Hopefully we can get you up and running. If nothing's working, we can try and get some more some replacement parts out just to start switching things out to see if one thing or another might be having an issue.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yep, thank you. All right, everyone, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up for today since it's after 1 p.m. So looks like you got a few folks still working. So like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And we'll save this video and get it uploaded, and we'll send that out on socials as well. And hopefully in a follow-up email, we'll have the link ready so everyone can go back and reference this if they need to. But yeah, I think we did pretty well today. So thanks again, everyone, for coming. And make sure you get home safe today.